Welcome back. So, hey, career video time. Why not? So, I figured before 2022 is done, let's do a career video on Roman Hamrlik, who was drafted in 1992. So, technically, still 30 years ago. Once we reach 2023, it'll be 31 years ago. Makes me feel old. But he was drafted first overall ahead of Alexei Yashin. And there was a lot of debate before that draft about whether Tampa Bay, a brand new team, their first player, whether they would draft Yashin, the really flashy Russian forward, or the Czech defenseman in Hamrlik. And so they went with Hamrlik. Of course, the Sens went with Yashin, and the rest is history. Now, with Hamrlik, his first year in the NHL was 92-93. So they put him right into the NHL, and this is with an expansion team. 67 games played, 6 goals, 15 assists, 21 points. Now, what's interesting is, I hear a lot about busts and how everybody's a bust now. But we heard that with Hamrlik too in year 2. 93-94, plays 64 games, 3 goals, 18 assists, 21 points. So while he was playing well, it wasn't what was expected of him. And so there was a lot of discussion of, well, kind of a bust, isn't he? I mean, really. The reality is, no. 94-95, he has that breakthrough. 48 games, 12 goals, 11 assists, 23 points. Anytime that a defenseman can get 10 or more goals, I'm impressed. 95-96, he has what it turns out to be a career year for him. 82 games, 16 goals, 49 assists for 65 points. Tampa Bay gets into the playoffs that year as well, which was a first. 5 games in the playoffs and 1 assist. So Tampa Bay's on their way up. He's in the All-Star game that year, and he finishes 7th in Norris voting. However, 96-97, less successful year for him. 79 games, 12 goals, 28 assists, 40 points. Those are still good totals for a defenseman, though. Remember, we're getting into the later 90s, where scoring becomes harder to come by. 97-98, 37 games with Tampa, 3 goals, 12 assists, 15 points. However, on December the 30th, he's traded. Yep. He is traded to the Edmonton Oilers along with Paul Comrie in exchange for Jason Bond Sr., who was a high draft pick for Edmonton, just didn't work out, Steve Kelly, and Brian Marchment. So the Oilers kind of win this deal in that he gets to Edmonton in 41 games, 6 goals, 20 assists, 26 points. That's a very solid total for him. In the playoffs, 12 games, 6 assists. So he joins an Oilers team that does well as the underdogs. The 98 Oilers were decent underdogs, and you didn't want to take them lightly in the playoffs. So 98-99, plays 75 games with the Oilers, 8 goals, 24 assists, 32 points, has 3 playoff games, no points there. He was in his second All-Star game, second of 3 All-Star games. He appeared in the All-Star game for 3 different teams, too. So, pretty solid season. 99-2000, 80 games, 8 goals, 37 assists, 45 points. And he's a good two-way defenseman. He's not getting the Norris voting for that because he's not getting enough points and he doesn't get enough attention. But he was still a really solid defenseman. In the playoffs, 1 assist in 5 games. However, he gets traded again. June 24th, he was traded to the New York Islanders in exchange for a 2000 second round pick, Eric Brewer and Josh Green. So, yeah, the Oilers win that trade too. Eric Brewer becomes a real star. Now, it's not that Hamrlik doesn't have a good run with the Islanders. This is during the Milbury era, but this is a trade that Milbury can sell pretty well because 2000-2001 in his first year with the Islanders, Hamrlik in 76 games has 16 goals, tying a career high, 30 assists, 46 points. So he really takes to the Islanders well. 2001-2002 in 70 games, 11 goals, 26 assists, 37 points. So a bit of a drop off, but not too bad. And in the playoffs, in 7 games, he adds a goal and 6 assists for 7 points. 2002-2003 in 73 games, he has 9 goals, 32 assists, 41 points. In the playoffs that year, he adds 2 assists in 5 games. And he was in the All-Star game yet again. So that's 3 All-Star games, 3 different teams. That was the end of him being in All-Star games. 2003-2004, 81 games played with the Islanders, 7 goals, 22 assists, 29 points. He plays 5 playoff games and has 1 assist. Now, of course, 04-05, there's no season. The 2005 summer was ridiculous because there were a lot of free agents. We knew that the league was going to shut down because of the number of contracts that weren't being signed. Either extensions or any talk of anybody being signed during the free agency period. It was a strange time. So August 14th of 2005, after they've ratified the agreement and they're going back to work, he signs as a free agent with the Calgary Flames. Plays 51 games in 05-06 with Calgary, 7 goals, 19 assists, 26 points. So his points per game rate's pretty good. In the playoffs, he adds 2 assists in 7 games. 2006, 2007, 75 games played for Calgary, 7 goals, 31 assists, 38 points. Very consistent, and this is how you, as a defenseman, end up having a nice long career. Consistent. And really, it's not about him being a number one draft pick and being a star or anything. It's just a very consistent defenseman, a good top four defenseman. In the playoffs that year, he adds an assist in 6 games, and then he goes to market. And on July the 2nd, he signs as a free agent with the Montreal Canadiens. So 2007, 2008 with Montreal, 77 games played, 5 goals, 21 assists, 26 points. In the playoffs, 12 games, which equals a career high from the Oilers in 98. 1 goal, 2 assists, and 3 points. So he didn't have a ton of goals in the playoffs in his career. Didn't play a ton in the playoffs either, but if you look at the teams he was with and when he was with them, they just weren't teams that were on the upswing. A Stanley Cup ring just wasn't in the offing for him. 2008, 2009, still in Montreal, 81 games, 6 goals, 27 assists for 33 points. In the playoffs, he plays 4 games, no points there. 2009, 2010, 75 games, 6 goals, 20 assists, 26 points. And of course, the 2010 playoffs, that's where Jaro Halak becomes a superstar. And I remember I even photoshopped up an image of Jaro Halak on a wanted sign because he had stolen a couple of series. Well, Hamrlik's part of that team. In 19 playoff games with a very surprisingly good Montreal team, 9 assists. And by surprisingly good, I mean Halak drags him there. So it was a miraculous run by the Montreal Canadiens. And he was part of that. They didn't quite get as far as they wanted to, but it was still a fun run while it lasted. 2010-2011, in what would be his final year in Montreal, 79 games, 5 goals, 29 assists. So we got 24 assists. That's wrong. It's 29 assists for 34 points. So just make that little change. 7 games in the playoffs and 3 assists. They lost in the first round that year against Boston. That was after they'd beaten Boston in many other series before that. But yeah, 2011 was a decent series between Boston and Montreal. Montreal just didn't have it. I think it was a game 7. I think it was overtime too, if I remember correctly. 2011-2012, he ends up signing with the Washington Capitals July 1st before that season, and that's where the offense has dropped off. And so this is the thing. Even with defensemen, you'll find that point where the speed drops off or their hands, and it's really an abrupt just drop in production. 68 games with the Caps that year, 2 goals, 11 assists, 13 points. The Capitals get out of the first round. He plays 14 games in the playoffs, 1 goal, 3 assists for 4 points. 2012-2013, he's having a hard time cracking the lineup with the Capitals. 4 games, only 1 assist with the Caps. On March the 6th, he is claimed on waivers by the New York Rangers. So he goes to the Rangers on March the 6th. They used him a lot more than Washington was. Plays 12 games, does not record a point for the Rangers. He's playing a support role at this point in his career. In the playoffs, he gets into 2 games of action, gets an assist in those 2 games. And so that ended up being the end of it, where he did retire on October the 21st of 2013. So after the season had started. But it was a great career, 1,395 games played. He doesn't reach 1,400 games played, but pretty close. 155 goals, 483 assists, 638 points. In the playoffs in 113 games, he has 3 goals, 38 assists for 41 points. So he doesn't get a Stanley Cup. He doesn't end up going to the Stanley Cup final, but he does have Olympic gold. Nagano, 1998, Hasek, and he's on the Czech team that wins gold. So he does get that. Not a Hall of Famer. I can throw him into the THG Hall of Fame. Sure, we can do that. Hamrlik, the first ever draft pick of the Tampa Bay Lightning, had a very nice long career. I'm wearing a Tampa jersey for this because he did spend the most of all the time he had with all these teams. Tampa Bay he spent the most time with, and hey, he was their first draft pick. So figure you got to wear Tampa Bay for this. But let me know your thoughts in the comments section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.